Why the Red Sox should not trade Willson Contreras at the trade deadline.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. I'm your host, Gabby Maljanian, and on today's show, who could be good trade pieces for the Red Sox at the trade deadline? Are there certain players that they should maintain versus players that they should get rid of? And I'm going to be breaking down 3 specific players and discussing whether they should be traded or not. Now, on a recent show, I talked extensively about Aroldis Chapman and why he should be the main trade candidate if the Red Sox are going to be sellers at this trade deadline, because as good as Chapman's been for the Red Sox, they could get a haul back for him at the trade deadline. If they can get a team's top 5 prospect back for Aroldis Chapman, who would be a 2-month rental for a contending team, they do that, no doubt about it. Aroldis Chapman has been so beyond effective in this Red Sox bullpen, and quite frankly, more effective than I think a lot of people expected, myself included. And if you want to try to build for the future, he's a great piece that could help you get there. But one guy who's being talked about in trade discussions as a potential trade piece for the Red Sox is Willson Contreras. Now, Contreras has definitely been surprisingly very good for this Red Sox team. Now, I was very excited about the Red Sox bringing in Willson Contreras. I felt like he was a guy who was an established veteran player who could provide some balance as a right-handed bat to this Red Sox lineup. And I thought that because of how consistent he's been over the last few years at the plate, that he'd be a nice addition to the team who gets himself on base and is just a steady presence in the lineup. But I did not expect him to be as good as he has been. And that goes for his defense too. As a guy who transitioned from catcher to first base, he has been so effective for this Boston Red Sox team. And if you really think about the season Willson Contreras has had for this team right now, they might not have realized that he would turn into their top offensive weapon. And going into the season, I was hoping they would have added another big bat. So that may have not been the case where he was their best offensive weapon, but here we are, and here he is. And he's certainly lived up to the hype that's come with him coming here to Boston, and has certainly exceeded expectations, at least for me. After getting some of the worst production in the league at the first base position last year, the Red Sox made an upgrade that felt very logical because they really needed to improve that position. And with that came a lot of noise about a trade for Contreras that ended up being noisier and noisier as the offseason went on. And a lot of teams would look to move on from a player like Contreras, though 33 years old at the time. He had a career 811 OPS coming into this season, had at least 20 homers in 6 of his previous 10 seasons, and 3 years of control remaining on his contract on a club option. So if you hear all of that information, you would think, well, would there really be a lot of teams that would want to move on from him? And the answer is likely no. But Contreras was a member of a St. Louis Cardinals team that was rebuilding. So they were looking to lean into more of a youth movement, and they were expected to move on from veterans like Contreras and Nolan Arenado, who also ended up being traded in the offseason. So the move made sense for them. And on December 22nd, the Red Sox officially pulled the trigger on a trade. That's when they acquired Contreras from the Cardinals for right-hander Hunter Dobbins, who was a rookie last season, and 2 other pitching prospects. And the arrival of Contreras was definitely a relief because the Red Sox now have a clear-cut power-hitting first baseman. And last year, after Tristan Casas went down for the season with a knee injury, the Red Sox kind of patched the position together with a platoon combination of Romy Gonzalez and Abraham Toro. And the result ended up being an 86 WRC plus that ranked 4th worst in Major League Baseball. So essentially that means that the Red Sox just weren't getting a lot of production at that position. And WRC plus means weighted runs created plus. So essentially when you think about that stat, the reason that stat is important and teams get evaluated based on that is because it really measures a hitter's total offensive value and compares that to the league average. So it accounts for the varying run values of different plate appearances, like a home run versus a walk, and adjusts for external factors like era and ballpark. So essentially 100 is league average, above 100 is above average hitter, and below 100 is below average hitter. So why it's the ultimate hitting stat is instead of relying on traditional but flawed stats like batting average or RBI, WRC Plus is favored by analysts and fans because it removes external variables. So essentially 86, they were well below average last year in that statistic at first base. So now with Casas and Romy both hurt on the 60-day IL and Toro is in the Royals minor league system, first base has belonged entirely to Contreras, which was expected. And the results have been even better than I think a lot of fans imagined. It took him a little bit to get rolling here. He went just 5 for 31 in his first 9 games with the Red Sox, striking out in about a quarter of his plate appearances. Then the breakout came. He was facing a familiar foe from his NL Central days and then went 3 for 3 with a walk, a double, a homer, and 2 RBIs in a home game against the Brewers. The team ended up losing that game but won the series, and Willson didn't look back from there. He's been the clear leader of Boston's offense ever since his slow start. He is slashing a batting average right now that is one of the best on this Boston Red Sox team. And his 144 WRC plus not only leads the team, but it's also tied for 22nd in all of baseball and 5th among primary first basemen. So he certainly has brought the offense for sure. And not only is he putting up good numbers, but these numbers are among his best marks ever. His current average and on-base percentage would both be a career high, while his slugging would be second behind the 533 that he put up in his 2019 All-Star season. So he is having a pretty exceptional season right now. And a lot of his batting profile looks as strong as it always has. He continues to rate exceptionally well an expected WOBA at 399 in the 96th percentile. What does that mean? That stands for weighted on-base average. So it's essentially an advanced baseball stat that measures a hitter's overall offensive value by assigning different values to each way that a player reaches base. So for example, a home run would be worth more than a single. Traditional stats like batting average treat all hits equally, and on-base percentage treats all ways of reaching base equally. So the difference with WOBA is that it fixes this by using historical run scoring data to accurately weigh each outcome. So you can read it just like a regular on-base percentage, but it's considered an all-in-one offensive metric. So instead of needing to look at batting average, on-base percentage, and slugging separately, you can look at a single WOBA number to see how many runs a player is truly contributing to their team per plate appearance. So 400 plus is considered elite / MVP level. 340 is great / above average. So he's 399. So he's right in that elite MVP level when it comes to that. So that's notable. And bat speed, 76.2 miles per hour, which is in the 94th percentile. Barrel rate of 14.4%, which is in the 88th percentile. And expected slugging of 530, which is in the 91st percentile. So he is demolishing fastballs this year. That's something that's really been helping him to excel offensively. He has a 314 average against those pitches, and that would be the best mark of his career, while his 529 slugging would be third best behind 544 his rookie year and 537 2 years ago. So he's seeing the fastball really well right now. So it may be no surprise that he's pulling the ball better than ever before, too. His 51.1% overall pull rate is the highest rate of his career by over 10%, as is his 27.0% pull rate in the air, which happens to rank 28th among qualified batters. So I know that's a lot of stats that I kind of rattled out there, but his defense also is a contribution to his game because he was starting to trend downward in his defensive results behind the plate with the Cardinals, and some catching prospects started to make their way to the majors. So St. Louis moved him to first base full time last year. And the more he's played at the spot, the more comfortable he has looked. He's compiled +3 defensive runs saved and +3 outs above average this year. Those numbers tie for 4th and 7th, respectively, among all major league first basemen. So this is a guy who's provided a steady presence at first base for the Red Sox. And the problem with trading him at the deadline would be you're giving up a guy who's very clearly one of the best players on this team right now. And if you're trying to rebuild for the future and you want to set yourself up for success in 2027, you're going to want to have Willson Contreras there. He barrels the ball, and barrel rate is a StatCast metric that measures the percentage of a hitter's batted balls that are struck with the optimal combination of exit velocity and launch angle to result in loud contact. So a higher barrel rate strongly correlates with elite power, extra base hits, and home runs. And for a Red Sox team that's lacking that home run power, this is the closest thing they have to that. So if they're rebuilding for 2027, they should be keeping Contreras around even past the trade deadline because he is the team's most productive hitter, pacing the team in home runs, RBIs, and OPS. So trading him would severely weaken the current lineup despite the team's overall struggles. And within the AL East, if they don't feel like they're going to climb back into the race, it doesn't make any sense to move on from Contreras. And even if they are in the mode where they're saying, okay, we're going to sell off a lot of our veteran pieces, you still want to keep him because he's provided the exact right-handed power that the Red Sox desperately lacked at first base last year. He's also under a higher team-friendly contract through 2027 with a club option for 2028, making him a long-term offensive fixture rather than a rental. It is very team-friendly, this deal. So because they would still be hanging on to him through the trade deadline, they can continue to build around him next year if they want to try to build a championship team. And despite being a newcomer, he has also stepped into a vital vocal leadership role within a young clubhouse. So even if you're trying to trade away pieces at this deadline, you still want a key leader in the clubhouse. And he has certainly served that purpose of being that leader. So they absolutely should not trade him. I get the blow it up strategy of maybe trying to just trade away everybody who's on an expiring or short-term contract, and Contreras would probably yield a high return in the trade market. And the Red Sox are trying to figure out the future of top prospects. So if they keep Contreras, they have to navigate playing time for younger corner infielders long-term like Tristan Casas. But with Casas not showing an ability as of now to be able to be a first baseman of the future, I'm still keeping Contreras to the trade deadline for everything that he's provided for this team because it's hard to believe that they can find a quick replacement for him because you do need that boost in the lineup. And even if Roman Anthony comes back, he hasn't been Willson Contreras. So even if the Red Sox aren't in contention, Willson Contreras is definitely a guy that I'm hanging on to if I'm the Boston Red Sox, no doubt about it, because this is a guy who, when you continue to get young pieces, if you trade away other pieces at the trade deadline and you bring in young talent to be in your farm system and hopefully make an impact one day, you're still going to want a vocal veteran leader around those players. So because of that, even if you're a rebuilding team, having that veteran presence is going to help the younger guys tremendously. So at the end of the day, his contract is team friendly. He's clearly the best offensive player on the team. He provides a big need for the Red Sox from the right side, and he's a guy who can provide leadership for the younger players. Do not trade Contreras no matter what you do with this trade deadline. And speaking of the trade deadline, could other players be on the move? Baseball season is here, and now you can trade every single game on Kalshi. So the way that Kalshi works essentially is you go onto their website, and what you do is you go in and you search. So if you search Red Sox, Baltimore versus Boston will come up. So essentially what it says is the Red Sox have a 55% chance. So if you hit yes for that, and then you type in $100 for the payout, then it'll essentially tell you in that case what the payout would actually be if you were to trade on that. So you can win a good amount of money through Kalshi. It's great. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade 10. Kalshi. Kalshi. Trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. Get your daily Red Sox coverage completely ad-free by joining the Everydayer Club today. Start your 7-day free trial right now and get closer to your team without the interruptions. Click the link in the show notes or go to lockedonredsox.supercast.com to claim your free trial. It's a great way to feel exclusive. So make sure that you hit that subscribe button. As we get closer and closer to thinking about the trade deadline and moves that could be made, what are the Red Sox going to do? Are they going to be buyers at this upcoming trade deadline? Are they going to be sellers? That is a question that still remains. And if they want the Red Sox organization to decide to invest in this team at the deadline and buy, then the players need to string together some more wins. That's the reality at the end of the day. Just kind of catch fire, find consistency, focus on winning series, and that's what you can really do. And when you look at where things are right now, the Red Sox have pieces that they could trade. And one popular player who has been talked about in trades for a while now is Jarren Duran. And he's been highly productive as of the last month and could command an incredibly valuable haul of prospects if the team does decide to rebuild. Because going into this season, the Red Sox already had an overflow of outfielders, and it was going to be difficult to try to get playing time for everybody because they just had too many players taking up not enough spots. And Jarren Duran and Roman Anthony were alternating playing in left field, but then you had Cedar Rafaela in center field and Willie Abreu in right field and Masataka Yoshida, who also had to get into the mix and get some at-bats. So you had to kind of rotate through all those guys. And because they had a lot of outfielders, guys' performances were being impacted because they weren't getting the everyday playing time. And Jarren Duran is a guy who should be hitting leadoff every day. And as of late, he has been. But what's going to happen when Roman Anthony comes back? Because if Roman Anthony comes back and they want to get him into the lineup again every day, that might impact Jarren Duran's playing time. And then the Red Sox aren't maximizing his ability. I don't believe it's a coincidence that he's had a red hot month of May. And for a lot of the time as of late, he's been playing every day because of Roman being out, because it kind of does go hand in hand, him being active and playing every day, increasing his performance. So the problem is if the Red Sox hang on to Jarren Duran when Roman Anthony comes back, they might be missing out on a prime opportunity to trade him. If they can secure an impactful right-handed hitter or quality starting pitching, especially, it feels worth it. Selling him now when his trade value is where it's at does come with some risks, because evaluating whether to move him depends heavily on the team's current needs and his fluctuating performance, because he had a really slow month of April but has had a great May. So what happens if he dips down again over the next few weeks? Then we might have a conversation of, well, Jarren Duran's trade value might not be the best, and we kind of missed a window to trade him at the end of May after he had a great month and he was still showcasing his speed and his strong ability in the outfield, but now we might not be able to get as much for him. So when the Red Sox are looking at roster holes, trading Duran, or at least being part of a package, could allow the Red Sox to acquire a right-handed bat to balance the lineup, or even upgrading the bullpen or the starting rotation if need be. Duran in that fold could make sense. He's has high team control. He signed a $7.75 million deal for 2026 and has 2 additional arbitration years remaining before he actually reaches free agency in 2029. So this level of club control makes him an attractive asset to other organizations, because sometimes teams are hesitant to trade for a player if they might lose that player to free agency that same year. But if they know that he has the control for another couple seasons, a team may want to make that move and say, all right, we'll take Jarren Duran because we know that we have him under team control for a bit, so we can at least work with that. There is a case to be made for keeping Duran because favorable timing is part of that. Trading him now after an inconsistent stretch at the plate would yield a much lower return than the Red Sox could have received in past off seasons. And obviously, as of right now, he's playing well, but if that value drops, then it would be tough to move him. Whereas immediately after May ended, if they had traded him then a few days ago, they could have gotten a haul back. So the timing is very much an aspect in this. And when he is on, he's one of the most explosive hitters in baseball, flashing both a mix of elite speed and extra base power. So the problem with trading him now would feel like you're losing a big bat in the lineup when he's performing at his best. But that's the key word, is when he's performing at his best, because of the fact that he has been inconsistent. And I'm very skeptical about his ability to stay consistent moving forward. And if the Red Sox are deciding they want to push for a wild card spot, then retaining Duran provides crucial insurance and depth in a competitive American League. And if they want to make a push, being able to have all their outfielders definitely wouldn't hurt. But if they decide they're going to be sellers at the trade deadline, it does not make sense to hold on to all these outfielders. And they're obviously not going to get rid of Roman Anthony. I don't see them getting rid of Cedar Rafaela because of his elite defense and the fact that he's shown a lot of improvement at the plate. And then there's Wilyer Abreu, who has been one of the best hitters on this team consistently over the course of the season, and he's a 2-time Gold Glover, so you can make an argument for them wanting to keep him too. Now, they could trade Masataka Yoshida instead of Jarren Duran, but the value right now is likely higher for Duran because he's not a one-dimensional player as much like Yoshida is, and he's a guy who is playing at a really high level right now. So there are things that you could say to make an argument for keeping him, because if the Red Sox do believe that he's going to be an asset to this team moving forward, then you might not want to trade him even if you're in sell mode. But if the Red Sox are in sell mode, then it does make a lot of sense to try to at least play around with seeing what they could get for him, because what they would want to get for him would be pieces that could contribute to the team long term. And when it comes to a potential Jarren Duran trade, they want to be able to do it in a way that it would allow them to sell high before it's too late. And that's why I talk about timing, because his recent surge of hitting really well makes him a prime trade candidate now. If the Red Sox were to make that move, as opposed to at the end of April when he was struggling, a team might be hesitant to trade for him at that point. But now, because it's a bigger sample size in the season and he's had a good month, now we can look back on it and say, all right, Jarren Duran has a little bit of a bigger sample size now in which he's been playing well. So now could be the opportunity to move on from him. So Duran just was the guy in May for the Red Sox. There was no really getting around it. He just was. On Sunday, he hit his 9th homer of the month to go along with 5 steals and an OPS north of 850. So he was just on fire. The bad news with that is that his resurgence wasn't enough to turn the Red Sox season around. They still had a losing record in May and fell further and further into last place in the AL East. But if the Red Sox are forced to sell at the trade deadline, he is somebody that they could move, and it does become easier when he's crushing the ball in this way that he is. They're hoping he gets back to 2024 form. We've seen a little bit of that over the last month, but overall, because of how up and down it's been, a team might be a little bit hesitant to give up a lot for him. So the Diamondbacks were floated as a potential Duran suitor when his name was in the trade rumor mill this past winter, but that was usually as part of a deal to get Ketel Marte to Boston, and it appears now that Arizona's patched things up with Marte, so he's likely not going to be moved because they are playing at a decently high level right now too. So if anything, the Diamondbacks may be buyers in August, so they wouldn't want to move on from Marte. They don't have the splashiest farm system in the world, but they do have one breakout name at the top to go with some surprising depth that they could give the Red Sox in a Jarren Duran trade. And what it would be is that the Red Sox could receive their top outfield prospect, Jordan Lawlar, along with a couple other prospects, an infielder, outfielder, you name it. The Red Sox receive essentially 3 prospects in the deal with Jordan Lawlar, their top outfield prospect, as the headliner, and Duran goes back to the Diamondbacks. This doesn't give the Red Sox an immediate player that could contribute to the team and make a difference right now, but it does help set them up well for a future rebuild with the talent that they would have coming in. And essentially, this would be a situation in which the Red Sox probably would say yes, because the Red Sox know they need to get more dynamic in the infield moving forward. And Lawlar has missed much of this season due to a wrist fracture, but he's a former top 25 global prospect who scorched the ball during spring training and was showing serious improvement in his contact metrics before landing on the shelf. So if he can sustain those gains, it will let his raw power and athleticism really shine. And there are star level outcomes in play for him. So this could be a guy who can provide plus speed and is a guy who can be a good hit tool for the Red Sox. So essentially, this could be a guy that the Red Sox could be excited about for the future. There is no particular superstar right now in the deal, but it does set the Red Sox up longer term for what they need. And for the Diamondbacks, they might like it because they could use Jarren Duran, who kind of checks the box of feeling like they need a piece that will help not just for the rest of this season, but a few more years beyond it to keep up with their contention timeline. And he fills a clear positional need because Arizona has gotten some of the worst offensive production in the league from its left fielders so far this season. So that could be beneficial for them too. So ultimately, at the end of the day, should the Red Sox consider moving on from Jarren Duran? If things get to the point where the Red Sox are definitely going to be sellers, then I say yes, that does make a lot of sense. So we'll have to see if the Red Sox decide they want to do it. But coming up, is there a starting pitcher for the Red Sox who could be on the move? With the NBA playoffs in full swing, NHL playoffs also deep into it, and it's championship time for those sports. Every possession matters, and if you want to get even closer to the action, that's where FanDuel comes into play. So you can bet on a lot of different sports on FanDuel, and it's great during the playoffs because everything is right there in one place. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right. Turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. It's a really easy app to navigate, and it makes the playoffs even more engaging from start to finish. You can bet on so many different things here. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. I personally love FanDuel because every time I go on and I have in mind a parlay I want to make, it usually suggests something else that I can throw in there too for a little bit of a bonus to try to make a little bit more extra money. So that could be you if you want to start making some extra cash while watching your favorite sports. So make sure you head to FanDuel today. Are the Boston Red Sox going to be sellers at the trade deadline? That is a big question that people have been asking. And it could go either way because the trade deadline is still a couple months away. So that means the Red Sox definitely have time to clean things up. And with the mediocrity of the American League right now, if they string together some wins, they could get themselves back into contention in the AL. But the question becomes, is it worth hanging on to all of their pieces if this feels like a team that even if it squeezes into the playoffs, can't make a deep run. So that's where trading some big name players might come in. I propose potentially trading Jarren Duran to the Diamondbacks, who had already been interested in him in the past. Their top outfield prospect, Jordan Lawler, who also, by the way, can play in the infield. So the Red Sox could stick him there if they feel like that's where he would benefit them the most. But then you have the Christian Campbell situation to still figure out. But either way, that's depth for the Red Sox if they feel like Jarren Duran should be on the move. But then you go to the pitching side and you look at Sonny Gray, who's a guy who could potentially be moved because he's on a 1-year deal and would fetch a pretty steep return from pitching needy clubs because of how effective he has been this season. The Red Sox are only paying him $21 million for his services this year, and he boasts a strong 3.27 ERA, so he is one of the most valuable assets for this Red Sox team. And the St. Louis Cardinals helped him be valuable for the Red Sox by eating a massive chunk of his remaining contract. So that makes the financial commitment very team friendly. So if a team does want to trade for him, even though it essentially be a rental for a playoff run, he's a guy that they know they wouldn't have to be spending a lot of money on. He holds a mutual option for 2027 that will likely be declined. So if the team slips further out of contention as the trade deadline approaches, this would be a big opportunity for the Red Sox to capitalize and collect some highly valued prospects to help build for the future. The Red Sox have struggled with run support and offense, so moving a top performing starting pitcher could allow Boston to flip him for a much needed middle of the order bat. This ultimately comes down to the team standing. If they're firmly in the playoff hunt in the weeks leading up to the deadline, then they should definitely keep him because they're going to want him in a playoff push. But if they keep falling further and further back, trading him to a contender is the most logical move to restock the farm system and try to get a middle of the order bat that would be under team control beyond this season to help boost that lineup a little bit more. And he's definitely making things interesting for the Red Sox because he's definitely pitched better than I think a lot of people expected. Outside of a couple rough outings, he has been solid for this team. So it might be hard for the Red Sox to want to part ways with him because with the way the AL is right now, the Red Sox are almost certainly going to be a few games out of the wild card race, yet still be underachieving based on preseason expectations. So that middle ground is tough because it's, well, we're not that far out of a wild card spot, but also we're underachieving. So how far can we really go? Sonny Gray is somebody we could really use down the stretch. And because he's been so dominant, this is a guy who has, after coming back from a 3-week stint on the injured list, just basically been lights out, being able to lower his ERA in that time to a 2.93. So why would they not want to hang on to him? Because if they decide that this is a team that just needs to start giving away pieces, they're not really going to benefit from having a rotation that could win them a World Series, then yeah, Sonny Gray shouldn't be here anymore because his value is so high because he's been pitching so well. I'm sure a team that just wants to make a World Series run this year would potentially be willing to pay for a rental for the last couple months of the season of Sonny Gray, and then they would give the Red Sox ideally some prospects in return and a guy in the middle of the order to add to the lineup who may not be a superstar talent right now, but a guy who definitely has that potential to provide that boost. So the only way it makes sense to keep Sonny Gray would be if the Red Sox feel like they 100% have a shot of being a team that could no doubt go for a World Series run this year. And if things continue to play out over the next few weeks and the Red Sox are still losing games consistently, and they're not really figuring things out, then Sonny Gray, similar to Aroldis Chapman, feels like a no-brainer. You want to trade the veteran who would be a guy who likely may not be coming back here next year anyway, because it would feel like a missed opportunity if they hang on to him only to still miss the playoffs or barely squeeze in and be a wild card round exit. So he's a guy to me, as good as he's been for this Red Sox team, that should definitely be on the Red Sox radar to move on from, no doubt about it, if things continue to go the way that they've been going for him and the team, because you don't want to waste an opportunity to try to get something out of him as opposed to him still being here for the rest of this season and then potentially walking for nothing afterwards and the Red Sox still miss the playoffs. So at least if they feel like they're not going to make the playoffs or they don't feel like they're going to make a deep run, at least if they go and decide to move on from Sonny Gray, then they at least know, hey, I'm making progress towards our team of the future. We actually got something for him as opposed to him just becoming a free agent and us not getting anything. So similar concept as Chapman, move on from Sonny Gray if you are not going to make a run. Other pieces that could potentially be moved, Isiah, Kiner-Falefa, and Patrick Sandoval. IKF has been increasing his value as of late because he's been hitting pretty well. Patrick Sandoval might be tougher because he's been injured. So it's hard to kind of move on from a guy who has been injured for as long as he has, but those are potential names to also keep an eye on. So either way, Jarren, Duran, Sonny Gray, and Aroldis Chapman, definitely names who should be on the chopping block if the Red Sox are going to sell. Don't sell Willson Contreras, but ultimately it's up to the Red Sox and we'll have to see what they decide. So thanks for tuning in to today's show. Be sure to keep tuning in Monday through Friday and subscribe and follow the show on any podcast platform so you get all of the latest episodes. Tomorrow I will be having Jemai Webster of Nesson on the show, so you definitely won't want to miss that. Plus, make sure to follow me on social media. I am on Twitter at Gabby Maljanian and on Instagram at Gabby_Maljanian10. Plus, you can follow the show on Twitter at LO_Red Sox. Make sure you do all of that. And if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Red Sox ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to LockedOnRedSox.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we now send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio for your second listen, go check out Locked On MLB. Thanks so much. As always, keep the faith, go Red Sox, and I'll catch you on the flip side.